Good afternoon, friends. In my previous lectures, I have discussed public administration, three dimensions of public administration. Then I also discussed in detail the three dimensional meaning of the word public. Then I discussed the significance of public administration in the context of any country, in the context of any society, significance of public administration. So today I am going to discuss, and one more thing that I discussed, Wilsonian perception of public administration. I discussed the politics-administration dichotomy. The doctrine of politics-administration dichotomy propounded by Woodrow Wilson, wherein I discussed how Woodrow Wilson, the father of the study of public administration, quite clearly defined that administration is concerned with application of law or implementation of the policies, and politics is the province of the statesman. The dynamics of politics and administration and how they are separate from each other and how they are interdependent and interrelated as well. So I discussed all such things in detail in my previous lecture. You can see that. Now come to good governance. Good governance is a very interesting topic. It has various dimensions. To begin with, first of all, whenever you come across anything related to any question related to good governance, you should know that there can be more than one perspectives of good governance, subject to some fundamental attributes of it. What I mean to say? That there can be different ways to look at good governance, because the word good is a relative expression. What you define as good, it may not converge with how I define something as good. Same is the case with the governance, good governance. Same is the case with society, that once American society, for them, what constitutes good governance may differ from Indian society, where we define good governance in a different way. But there can be some fundamental attributes. It means all over the world, in different countries, different societies, there can be various different ways to look at what constitutes good governance. But some basic attributes of it can be identified. What is that? That wherever you have good governance, it means the government is capable of exercising its authority and discharging its responsibilities in such a way, or the government has been able to make the most efficient, effective and very judicious exploitation of all the available resources in such a way that it has led to a progressive transformation or change in the quality of lives of people. Are you getting a point? There can be different ways to look at good governance. The word good is subject to multifarious interpretation, depending on situations, circumstances, availability of resources, historical factors. Lot many things are there. The word good may assume one other garb along the scale of time and space. But in general, when we talk about good governance, whether in the context of monarchy or in the context of democratic form of government, whether in the context of a socialist state or in the context of a capitalist state, wherever you go, when you think of good governance, at the first instance you think of a governance. Think of a governance which is capable of bringing progressive changes in the life, of qualitative transformation in the life of the people. Better utilization of resources, efficient utilization of resources, the gap between bridging up of the gap between potential growth of a society and actual growth of a society. So any society which has a lot of potential, what it is capable of doing and what it is actually doing. If the gap between the two is bridged, to that extent you can say it is a good governance. And then good governance is not just about providing goods and services to society. Good governance, the scope of good governance is so broad that it brings with this purview in social, economic, cultural, political, all conceivable dimensions of life. Overall, people are happy, they are satisfied, and there is a kind of there is a organic connectedness between the government on the one hand, society on the other. Better health, education, then the better management of environmental protection, wildlife protection, social justice, economic justice, lot many things of the infrastructure development. It means governance is of the kind which is capable of providing for the fuller expression of potential of individual groups and communities. It is not just about dealing with the economic aspect, dealing with almost all dimensions of life. That is good governance. So you define good governance from legal disposition, or you define legal and constitutional disposition, or you define good governance from philosophical point of view, or you define good governance from from the prism of good governance from the prism of analysis of socialism or capitalism, whichever way you come from. Finally, all the routes, all the paths, towards good governance, they have to converge at one place. That ultimately, what is the test? Are people really happy with the nature and quality of governance? If that is happening, then you can say good governance is there. Then what is the test of good governance? What is the test of good governance? That the government has been able to make best possible utilization of available resources to bring some changes, qualitative changes, positive changes in the life of the people. Social justice, economic justice, political justice, everything comes within the bounds of good governance. Up to this point is clear. What is governance? What is governance? Ideally, I should have discussed it, at the beginning of my lecture, but no problem. Governance is all about government in action. Governance is about exercising of authority by the government. And good governance means that the government machinery, government means sum total of ensemble of all such institutions. So when the government exercises authority, the outcome is governance. So if any government is exercising authority in such a way that it leads to positive changes in the life of the people, then it qualifies to be called good governance. Now, there can be different criterions, which society may apply to judge whether the governance is good or bad. It means the criterions that the people used to apply in ancient period or medieval period to judge the quality of governance was one, and in modern times, when you apply criterions to judge the nature of governance, it may be different. So what I mean to say, that overall, what kind of ecological setting is under consideration when you're talking about good governance? You're talking about good governance in the context of India, or in the context of America, or to France, or Japan, or Pakistan is an exception still. You take it, any country, you are talking about good governance. Then all democratic countries may have some similarities. That good governance begins with some kind of legitimacy, some kind of openness, some kind of transparency in the government, in the governance, public participation in the process of governance. So all such things are common to democratic countries. Subject to these communities, things may differ from country to country, because American society is different from Indian society. The needs and aspirations of society, their social outlook, their perception of the government, what they expect of the government, such things may differ from country to country. Accordingly, the definition of good governance to some extent changes as you move from one society to another society, one country to another country. Point is clear? So a society may be happy if the government is simply providing all the goods and services, health, education, infrastructure, all such things, and a lot of freebies, all such things are being taken care of by the government, and the society considers the government is doing so well and we have good governance in our country. But the same society, when it evolves over a period of time, when society is evolving on mature lines, then after 20 years or 10 years or so, as the case may be, the same society may not be satisfied with the quality of governance, even though the government is providing all such goods and services. Why? Because people have become aspirational. So it is just not enough for them to, get goods and services from the government. They would like to decide the what, how, and why, or the nature of administration and governance, and what quality of goods and services can be designed and can be delivered to them. If society becomes aspirational, it looks for participation in the decision-making process. So it means good governance in the context of a country may change its character as you move from one time period to another time period. And good governance may also assume different characteristics or different orientation as you move from one country to another country. So governance is plainly the act of exercise of authority. It is the good which is subjected to, or which can be subjected to, a lot of debate and discussion. Because the criterions that we apply to judge what is good, it differs along the scale of time in the same country, or it differs from country to country. So that's why the governments are required to be extremely vigilant and alert. They need to keep their fingers on the pulse of opinion of people, that what is the need of society, what are the aspirations of the people, and accordingly they try to synchronize their governance with the aspirations of society, or whatever thing that goods and services that they are providing to the society, they consider it in the light of expectation of society. Then again, another level of good governance, that society may not be satisfied simply because you are providing quality goods and services at an affordable price. Society needs something more than that. What is that? Wide range of goods and services. The people, in society, if society has evolved, then people, they extend the concept of democracy to economic world like this, that it is just not enough to be given, the goods and services. Government should manage economy, all the players in the economy, public or private sector, all something in such a way that people, every individuals, groups and communities, they are exposed to wide range of choices so that they could buy goods and services as per their specific preference, as per their individual preference. So that can also be a way to look at the good governance. So don't think that good governance is just about providing essential goods and services to society, maintaining law and order. It differs from society to society, from one condition to another condition. To begin with, society may demand only basic things in the name of good governance: administration of law and order, better administration of justice, and then all the basic goods and services. But as the society evolves over a period of time, it is not so much motivated. Society is not so much satisfied by such basic things, which are taken as something extremely essential to be provided anyway by the government. They look for something else. So they will be looking for public participation. They'll be looking for public accountability. So what I mean to say, that thematic scope of good governance never remains static. Thematic scope of good governance undergoes expansion according to the rising aspirations of society. How? Because society is constantly in touch with other societies. They learn from others, and others also learn from the society. And this way, they start looking at the things from different ways, different prism of analysis, and aspirations go high. And if these aspirations are not met with from time to time, it may lead to a friction between the government on the one hand and society on the other. So there are different ways to look at the good governance. Then one more thing, good governance is not merely concerned with ends, it is also concerned with means. If wrongful means are applied or wrongful means are deployed to meet the requirements of society or to satisfy society in one other areas of different kinds of goods and services, if wrongful means are applied to accomplish any goal or to create an impression of good governance, it cannot be sustained over a long period of time. Why? Because if means are wrongful, even if the immediate ends are accomplished, the very question or the very fact that you have applied wrongful means, it gives birth to tens of unworthy ends to be accomplished by the government. कहने का मतलब ये कि आप अपने लक्ष्य की प्राप्ति के लिए, किसी साध्य के लिए आप जिस साधन का उपयोग कर रहे हैं, साधन अगर उपयुक्त नहीं है, उसके पीछे कोई दूरदर्शिता नहीं है। गवर्नमेंट जो है वो लोगों को रिझाने के लिए, समझाने के लिए, इलेक्शन जीतने के लिए ऐसे कुछ निर्णय ले रही है जो बहुत ही प्लीजेंट हैं, देखने में बहुत अच्छा। जैसे आप देखिएगा, गवर्नेंस बाय फ्री बीज हम लोग कहते हैं, ठीक है, फ्री में बिजली ले जाओ, फ्री में पानी ले जाओ, फ्री में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, मतलब और भी कई तरह की सुविधाएं, बस राइड फ्री लड़कियों को मिल जाएगा, लड़कों को मिल जाएगा, लैपटॉप बांटेंगे, मोबाइल फ़ोन बांटेंगे, ये सब चीज़ें जो आप कर रहे हैं, in short term, it may appear good, governance is good, fine, but in the long term, it is not sustainable. इसके बहुत सारे नुकसान हो सकते हैं। एक तो आपकी जो इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन है उस पर असर पड़ेगा, आपके डेफिसिट बढ़ते चले जाएंगे अगर आप रेवेन्यू जनरेट नहीं कर पाए दूसरी तरफ तो, और मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग दैट इट विल एडवर्सली अफेक्ट द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ कैरेक्टर ऑफ इंडिविजुअल ग्रुप्स एंड कम्युनिटीज। उनके क्राइटेरियंस धीरे धीरे चेंज हो जाएंगे। उसके बाद से सोसाइटी ये समझेगी कि बेहतर सरकार वही है जो फ्री में लैपटॉप, मोबाइल, टीवी और कई तरह की चीज़ें जो हैं, फ्री में बिजली, पानी, अनाज बांटे। अगर ये क्राइटेरियंस है तो कल बहुत सारे अच्छे लोग जिनको सरकार में होना चाहिए उनको जनता बाहर फेंक देगी, और वो लोग जिनके पास कोई विज़न नहीं है वो सरकार में आ जाएंगे। आप मेरी बात समझ गए? सो मीन्स एंड रिलेशनशिप इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट रिगार्डिंग गुड गवर्नेंस। सो गुड गवर्नेंस इज नॉट जस्ट अबाउट setting certain goals and accomplishing such goals mechanically. You need to be careful about the means that you are deploying. Things which are pleasant in the short term may not be good in the long term, and vice versa. So therefore, in good governance, at the first instance, good governance is about a very efficient exercise of authority by the government, very prudent and effective utilization of total available resources to bring a qualitative change in the life of the people. People are happy. This is the first criterion, the most visible thing that we apply to judge whether the governance is good or not. And thereafter, analysis may come. How the government has accomplished such thing, how the government is providing such thing, what will be the long-term implications or the short-term implications, whether the government has been able to strike fine balance between the claims of different groups and communities or not, whether it is oriented towards sustainable development or inclusive development or balanced development, something like this. But the most crucial test is that after all such thing, what has happened to the society? Society is witnessing development all around, and there has been change in the quality of life of the people. Good governance is not only about registering growth. In digital terms, registering growth of 7% to 8%, it is about development also. So quantitative improvement in the quantum of goods and services available, and then a qualitative improvement as well in the life of the people in all dimensions: social, economic, cultural, and political. This is about good governance. I have just shown you the way to look at the good governance. Don't be judgmental. Read the question, see what is the scope of the question, and accordingly you can deal with good governance. The scope is very broad, very broad. There are certain basic similarities in all the model of good governance all over the world among democratic countries. Then again, things may differ from country to country and society to society. You cannot say that good governance and democracy go side by side, because we have several instances of good governance in monarchy as well. But in contemporary times, when most of the countries are democratic countries, they are a modern democratic welfare state. So therefore, the criterion in the Committee of Nations, the criteria that we apply to judge whether the governance in a country is good or not, it is inspired by democratic values and principles. So that's why in modern times, when you think of good governance in general, it invariably involves the element of public participation in decision-making process, public accountability, then legitimacy, then openness, then honesty and integrity. Then the government's administration's conformity to the principle of impersonality and objectivity. Then to what extent the government or administration enjoys the public trust. All such criteria are applied. Are you getting a point? So it means subject to some basic similarities, things may differ from country to country. So therefore, when you think of good governance, be alert. In what context question is being asked. Point is clear? Good governance, there are different ways to look at good governance, but still there is some basic similarity. If that is not happening, it will not qualify for good governance. It is not, good governance is not the hostage of only democratic model of governance. There can be good governance in democracy, there can be good governance in monarchical form of government, there can be good governance in a communist state, or there can be good governance in a democratic state, again with capitalist model. So there can be good governance at any place. But in the short term, the long term, consequences, also things are required to be examined. And finally, as I said so many times, I have said it, that to what extent there has been a change, qualitative change or improvement in the quality of lives of people. Point clear. Thank you.